This is really? I'm sorry.
Because it's a jump. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
And welcome to Adith Emmanuel on this Shabbat Shuvah, the Sabbath of return. It's a special Shabbat which always falls between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There's always 10 days between the two, and so there will always be a Shabbat in between. And so you'll notice some of the music tonight might sound like the High Holy Days, because that's the season of these 10 days. And some of the inserts that we have in our prayers are those same inserts that we add at the High Holy Days. And we are most grateful to our adult choir for being here tonight to enable our cantorial leader to be in the congregation, and our condolences to you, David. So thank you. As we turn now to our opening song, page 662, Hashivenu. As we turn now in our prayer books to page 121, for the lighting of our Shabbat candles, it's my pleasure to invite to the Bima Robert Kernish to lead us in the lighting and blessing of our Shabbat candles and of the Kiddush.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us Of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotov, v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
As we turn now to page 123. Page 123 for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'rotzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, b'achavav ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehillah lemikroe kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim, ki vanu vaharta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, b'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat.
As we turn now, welcoming Shabbat with Lecha Dodi, we turn in our prayer books to page 138 and 139. On page, we rise for the 9th verse on page 139. we're standing, we take a moment, not now having greeted Shabbat, to greet one another. Perhaps turn to somebody, if not the person next to you, whom you may already know, but somebody across the way, in front or behind. As we turn now in our Siddur to page 264, we continue with Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
May be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך, אלוהי אברהם, ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בהם בשבתך ובביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We read responsively on page 269. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all. Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound. Before our eyes there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness. There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul. When will redemption come? When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves. Long ago we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High. We learned God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
Tomorrow.
On page 271, we read together. Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. You are true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. We continue on page 272 with Vishamru.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. La'asot et ha-Shabbat l'donotam b'rit olam. La'asot et ha-Shabbat l'donotam b'rit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Beini uvein v'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Beini uvein v'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Vishabbat, Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Ki sheshet yamin asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Ki sheshet yamin asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Uvayom, vayom hashvi, Shabbat vayinafash. Uvayom, vayom hashvi, Shabbat vayinafash. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat.
As we turn to the next section of our tefillah, of our worship this evening, called the tefillah, the prayer, this is where we will find our Shabbat Shuvah inserts. So before we begin with the tefillah, let's turn for a moment to page 274 as we see that smaller writing, Shabbat Shuvah insert, we'll be singing the Zofrenu L'chaim there. And on page 275, in addition to the Morid Hatal, because technically we're still in the summer, according to Israel's calendar, will also be further down the page on 275, add that Mi Chamocha Av Harachamim, or El Harachamim. And then on page 276, where we see in the Hebrew, or the transliteration, that asterisk, we end Baruch Atah Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh, because during these days of repentance, these Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, we see God not just as El HaKadosh, the holy God, we see God as HaMelech HaKadosh, the holy sovereign, just like we say Avinu Malkeinu, addressing God using that form of Melech, the ruler. And so we turn back to page 273. As we're able, we rise for tefillah.
Open up my lips, and my mouth may declare your praise.
may be seated. As we turn now to page 281. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks. For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise. For the desire in us which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful. For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being. For all these things, O Sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. Inscribe all the children of your covenant for a good life. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha lecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim, Tasim, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim.
We continue our prayer now silently, whether we are led by the words on the pages of our Siddur page through page 285, or other prayers throughout the prayer book, or those meditations and thoughts in our hearts. We turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are in need of healing, and so we turn in our Siddur to page 371, in the middle of the page, as we're thinking of those in our extended Adith Emmanuel family who are in need of healing. If you're watching us through the blessing of technology tonight, I invite you to add the names of those whom you're thinking of into the chat at this time. I will read the names that we have, and if you would like to add a name afterward, I would invite you to rise, and as my glance meets yours, you can add that person's name. We're thinking of prayers of healing, especially for Alan Cohen, Lisa Goldstein, Bruce Tresky, Brian Zabel, Robin Schaefer, Ed Crosby, Yehudit Bat Avraham Vasara, Jonathan Burr, Myra Kaplan, Sarah Drasnin, Ron Fisher, Jeff Schaefer, Lulu Rivuela, Marion Wirtz, Aaron Tepper, Lily Tepper, Joan Major, Karen Bowen, Louis Alahut, Mary Parker, Barbara Cohen, Tricia Tepper, Jordan Maverick Steinberg, Carol Schaefer, Carrie Basin, Dr. Jerry Herman, Todd Pollard, Murray Kemmerman, Mary Mednitsky, Jocelyn Jackson, Jen Jones, Shirley Friedlander, Michael Infanti, Gary Garnick, Sarah Oken, Ann Marsden, Jerry Dreskin, Rick Ulrich, Ileana Cohen, and others whom we're thinking of at this time.
Lila Green.
Baruch Ata Adonai, Rofei HaCholim.
Mi sheberach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
How about now? Can you hear me? Yeah. On this Shabbat Shuvah, I want to share with you a story that was actually written in this book called This Jewish Life. It wasn't written, but it's a friend of mine. Her name is Deanna Silver Jacobson. And this is her story of beginning the new year at sea. And actually, I spoke to her this week. It's actually the 36th anniversary of this story. And so she's in a slightly different place than when this story was recorded. But she said that this experience was really a pivotal moment for her and her Judaism. And that's why I chose this story today, because Shabbat Shuvah is our Sabbath of return. It's our time when we especially try to draw near during these 10 days to God, to our Judaism, to our community, however it is that we connect. And so I share with you beginning the new year at sea. One of the biggest reservations I had after learning I'd been accepted into the University of Pittsburgh's Semester at Sea program was the realization that I would be spending Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur away from my family for the first time in my life. I wouldn't hear the cantors' familiar High Holy Day melodies, or be with my loved ones for our family's legendary holiday meals. I didn't even know if I would be with other Jews at all. It was quite possible that I would mark the Jewish New Year in private by myself. All my friends and family said holiday homesickness wasn't reason enough to miss the opportunity of a lifetime. Go, my mother said. You'll find a way to make it meaningful. I didn't know how that could possibly be, but I sent in my deposit anyway, got all my shots, and started packing. There were 400 of us all together, college students from all across the country. During our 3 months at sea, we would tour Japan, Korea, Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, and Malaysia, Bombay, India, Odessa, USSR, now Russia, and Cadiz, Spain, were also to be ports of call, as were stops in Istanbul, Turkey, and Dubrovnik, Yugoslavia, now Croatia. Leading professors from universities in each country gave onboard lectures. A major goal of the trip was to show us that beyond the differences in geography and appearance, we would have a lot in common with the people we were to meet. I didn't realize at the time how much I would also learn about the commonality between Jews. Rosh Hashanah would fall between Taiwan and Korea, and as it drew closer, my homesickness only grew. Each time we docked, I would seek out a telephone. Of course, this is pre-cell phones, right? Only to turn away from dialing. The thought of calling home tightened my throat with such longing that I couldn't speak. I didn't know how I would make it through. Then, somehow, via that radar we all seem to have, word got passed among the Jewish students that a group was getting together to hold Rosh Hashanah services. This was something I knew I could do. And for the first time ever, I got involved in High Holy Day services, not as a passive congregant, but as a leader. At our first planning meeting, Steffi, a student who had her sights set on rabbinical school, took stock of our various skills and aptitudes. She had brought a prayer book from home and had gone on a scavenger hunt that netted us a battered but usable Torah scroll. We decided who had skill enough to read Torah and who would lead prayers. Since the Siddur was not a high holiday prayer book, others were assigned the task of writing prayers appropriate to Rosh Hashanah that would be inserted into the service. I was given the challenge of writing a sermonette and the honor of reading Torah. We knew that it was up to us, and us alone, to make the services meaningful for everyone. We also planned to invite non-Jewish students. We wanted it to be a learning experience for them as well. Many of our shipmates had never even met a Jew before, and it made sense to invite them. The raison d'etre of this trip was to learn about other cultures. What better way than this? Over the course of the week, as we created our service, individual memories of our holidays at home began to surface. Some of us had grown up observing Rosh Hashanah for 2 days, others for 1. Still others came from families who observed the holiday only intermittently. We talked of mandelbread and mechitzas. There was such a free exchange of experiences, I think in part because so many of us were incredibly homesick. Hearing stories about one another's temples and shuls, trading tales about eccentric uncles and exploded kishkas at holiday dinners helped us through our longings for home. Magically, that Rosh Hashanah service, marking the Jewish year 5747, was the most meaningful one I ever attended. We students had barely known each other 2 weeks, but repeating the Shema joined us. Singing the Ve'ahavta united us. From the first reading to the final Adon Olam, we became a community. Just like that, not only were we linked to one another, but we felt the presence of all of our families, knowing that on the other side of the date line, they would soon be awakening, dressing hurriedly, and walking to shul or finagling a parking spot in the synagogue's crowded lot, praying and singing as we had. I had new friends simply because I was a Jew, and they were Jews. We had unspoken agreement that we could turn to one another if we needed to. I was halfway across the world from home, but I realized somewhere between my sermon and the Torah reading that Judaism is my home. Much in the same way that a turtle carries her house on her back, I realized that I carried my Judaism with me wherever I went. No matter where I am, I thought, all I have to do is link up with fellow Jews and I can be home once again. That evening, after the festive holiday meal prepared by the Asian chefs on board, yellow tablecloths and lots of rice, but apples, honey, and a challah too, about 40 of us, some Jewish, some not, went up to perform tashlich and havdalah on the sun deck. Water is a big image in Judaism, and I thought about Noah surrounded on a journey whose outcome he couldn't fathom. The Israelites passed through the amniotic waters of the Sea of Reeds to be reborn into freedom. Rebekah and Isaac fell in love at her father's well. 21 years old and 10 time zones from home, I threw my breadcrumb sins into the inky darkness of the East China Sea and felt an entirely new dimension of my Jewish identity come into being. Havdalah was electrifying as our morning services. Standing in a circle, we watched the sun slip beneath the waves, leaving behind a horizon of brilliant blue. The ship's whistle bellowed low and loud, a good enough substitute for the shofar we did not have this year. We passed around the spice box, then the braided candle whose flame flickered in the wind. We blessed wine, sang songs, and wished one another Shavua Tov, a good week, and began to scatter. And just then, Elisa, the student from Mexico, approached Steffi and asked if she could help her find the Kaddish in her prayer book. Several of us within earshot stopped in our tracks and began counting, just like that. We called others back to be sure we had enough for a minyan. We didn't yet know that Elisa had just received a wire from home that her grandfather had died, and we didn't have to know it. She didn't have to ask us to stay or ask for a minyan, but we understood and we were there for her. Plain and simple, that's what it means to be Jewish. As we stood around giving our silent support while Elisa said the words of the Kaddish, I felt an indescribable solidarity with the Jewish people. It occurred to me then why you need 10 for a minyan, so that you are not so that you will not be alone in your grief. Your community will come forward for you. The semester passed quicker than a black market deal in Moscow, and before I knew it, I was home, attending my brother's bar mitzvah, celebrating Passover with my family, looking forward to graduation and my first move into the adult world. That was 12 years ago, well, now 36. I'm married now, raising kids of my own. When they dip their apples into the honey each year, they leave sticky golden trails on my white tablecloth. Each year, when the cantor blows the shofar in synagogue, I hear an echo of the ship's horn, loud and mighty as Moses. I've forgotten Korea's GNP and how to say excuse me in Turkish, but I will remember this forever. Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. Shabbat Shalom. We turn now in our prayer books to page 586. 586 at the bottom of the page, we rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tekru l'alioseh breshit, shelo asanu kogayei haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot adama, shelo sam pelkenu kahem, v'gahar aleinu k'cho hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al haaretz, hayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
We turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are no longer with us. And so we turn in our prayer books to page 592. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and so we announce with sadness the deaths of Coco Aguilar, mother of David, and Cantor Sandy, Messenger Aguilar. Also the death of Harriet Rosenberg, mother of Mindy Miller, and Jack, grandmother of Aaron. Coco's service will be this Sunday here at Addith at 6 p.m. Harriet's service will be Monday at 10 a.m. at Shalom in Huntington Valley. And during this period of Shloshim, we also think of Stella McFadden, mother of Diane Magram. And we think of those who died of the season in years past, whose yahrzeits we mark on this Shabbat. Dominic Delange, Robert Diorio, Eileen Halperin, Barnett Knappen, Claire Oliver, Aaron Orkin, Myrna Schulman, Sam Silverstein, Linda Sipsky, Frida Walter. And if you have a name to add at this time, if you're watching remotely, please feel free to add that name in the chat. If you're in the congregation and have a name you want to add, I would invite you to rise at this time. And so I invite, And so I invite those who are in the period of Shiva or Shloshim to rise, or those who are in the first year of mourning. And those who are observing a yahrzeit on the Shabbat to rise. And as one congregation, we all rise in comfort and support, continuing with the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra krute v'amlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'riyachu, le'ela v'le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, ta'amiran v'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, amen. It's my pleasure to call Diane Singer to the bima to share some announcements with us.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Diane.
Thank you, Rabbi Memes Fowler. Thank you, Adult Choir. For those of you that don't realize, this is a perfect example of how our Adult community becomes family. It was just the last 24 hours that we put together the choir so that Sandy could sit with Dave and we could have our service tonight. So thank you for stepping in, and this is what we do, and this is why we're called family, okay? And also, Herb, did I hear you sing or chant? I mean, like, wow, thank you, okay? So to all of you, thank you for leading tonight's service. Thank you to Bob for leading us in the blessings, and thank you to Judy for setting up Oneg, and as always, a special thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. Please join us tomorrow morning at 8:45 for Torah Talk and Bagels, followed by our Simply Shabbat morning service at 10 a.m. So believe it or not, the High Holy Days still continue. So this Tuesday evening, please join us for Kol Nidre at 7:30, followed by Yom Kippur morning services Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Later in the afternoon, we have our family service at 2 o'clock. And lastly, the afternoon Yizkor service starts at 4, so please join us. A few items to look forward to in October. Next Friday evening is our family Shabbat. It's also our pink Shabbat. So wear pink, come out and join us next Friday evening. Sukkot and consecration will also be next weekend on Sunday evening. Once the sukkah is set up, Men's Club will be celebrating in the sukkah. Sisterhood will host pizza in the hut. Adith is offering a morning of mahjong in the sukkah. And hopefully, I read on the calendar that Shabbat services are also going to be in the sukkah. So let's hope for good weather next week, the following week, okay? Those are just a few samplings. If you want more details, check the weekly happenings. The bulletin should be coming out shortly. Tonight's Oneg is in the social hall, so hopefully you'll stay for a minute and socialize with your fellow congregates. And for tonight's thought for Shabbat, I'm going to share a quote that was shared with me this morning. This week. I don't know if it was sent to me because of an inner meaning, but I thought I'd share it with you tonight. While it's important to act properly between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's perhaps more important to act properly between Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. So I don't know what somebody was trying to tell me, but I'm passing that on to you, and thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
As we turn now to our closing song on page 625, Adon Olam, verses 1 and 4. And please join me in Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tzei avon, and Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Chuck, I've got it. When you were reading this story,
Yes. Okay.